what do you love? Because what you love is probably what you're going to be good at. And, Seth Godin talks about doing something that you can be best in the world at. And that doesn't mean the world has to be the entire planet. It might be Venice, California. But whatever your world of influence is or can be, ask yourself, can I be the best? With work and dedication and some luck.
Have you ever eaten food from an entirely sustainable supply chain? Now, if you don't know what an entirely sustainable supply chain is, then you need to stop watching this, go Google it, and then come back to the 23-second mark of this intro and then start watching again. But if you know what an ethical supply chain is, if you know what it means to make sure that everybody in your supply chain is being taken care of and no one is being taken advantage of and that the food is ethically sourced and all of those different things, then you would know my next guest on the All In CEO podcast. By the way, what's up? It's Sanyika. What's up, Firestarters? But you would know my next guest on the All In CEO podcast because my next guest is Erik Oberholtzer, the former CEO and chairman of Tender Greens. And Erik, he is a leader in the sustainable food movement. He is a leader in ethically sourced food. He is a leader in making, in regeneration and being somebody that has the ability to make sure that, that you live within your values and you still make a profit and a living and a lifestyle. Like, just imagine that. Imagine living in your essence as a human and ethically and being able to achieve beyond your wildest imagination. So I am really looking forward to y'all watching this. Enjoy the next episode of the All In CEO podcast featuring Erik Oberholtzer. I am here with a very good and longtime friend of mine, Senior Erik Oberholtzer. It is a pleasure to have you on the All In CEO podcast. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you. Always a pleasure being with you.
For sure, man. For sure. So, quick question. Do you are you going for the 5 o'clock shadow, or do you actually let the beard grow? Have you ever let the beard come to its full possibility?
I only did that once, and it was when I was in the Himalayas. I was trekking, and I let it go to beyond the itch point. These days, I'm just an unkept farmer.
Got it. Oh man. So being in the space of being an unkept farmer, look, this is where I'm at, and I pretty much stay in this space. I mean, this is about 3 to 4 years worth of growth. That's just the way that my hair grows, and I'm going to accept it. I'm going to love myself through this process. But Erik, you have a really powerful journey, but I think the place that I really wanted to start at is the idea of being regenerative. There's a juxtaposition of personal reinvention and being regenerative. What does regenerative mean for you?
To me, it's rebuilding, it's healing. Culturally, I think politically, some might say building back better. But it's the next it's the next step beyond sustainability. So for many, many years, we were talking about sustaining, sustainable systems, sustainable living. And that's not good enough because we've done too much damage. We've done too much damage culturally. We've done too much damage environmentally. And I think many of us have been damaged by the last 2.5 years of pandemic, perhaps, to some degree, the failure of institutions that we should all be in a position of trust with. So I think there's there's this need to heal, to regenerate, to reform, rebuild, and do it in a way that is inclusive, not exclusive, meaning not just for people, but holistically for planet, for people, and for everything around us, that there has to be an opportunity and a pathway to heal. And regeneration, regenerative living, regenerative systems aim to take that holistic approach to healing. And at whatever degree of damage any system or any person or any culture might be in, to have a path forward that makes it better tomorrow than the state of today.
Giving a shit about tomorrow, not just for yourself, but on behalf of everybody that you touch.
That's right.
Feels like that's a great way to be in general, is like to actually care, right? As opposed to just siphoning off what it is that we need, putting ourselves in a situation where we can create a life that makes us feel alive, while at the same time contributing to the positive outcomes of other people as they live on the planet.
Yeah, and it was always the foundational focus of Tender Greens, the company that I started back in 2006, to offer pathways to wellness at affordable prices, and in a context that people could use it daily. But in doing that, to ensure that all of our stakeholders, whether it was our employees, our customers, our farmers, anybody who we touched, the participants in the Sustainable Life Project, that everybody was left better off as a result of having done something with us. And we really looked at things holistically. And it's not perfect or pure. We made a lot of mistakes, and there's this mindset that came out of Google that I love, which is progress over perfection. That as long as we're moving it forward in a positive way, that is good, and not to get so caught up in impurity or perfection, because it's really not achievable.
Yeah. My mama taught me that a long time ago. And of course I didn't listen. Why would I listen to that? Why would I actually honor that? I'm going to just spend my time trying to be a perfectionist and get everything right. I love that, man. Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
So when you think about like the culture at Tender Greens, right? Like what sort of the aspiration? Did you actually have, or do you have sort of like a broad idea of what the KPIs of impact are? Like, what does it look like when you're creating impact? Is it, in sort of that chain of events? Is it X number of lives impacted on the nonprofit front or the foundation side? Is it like, X number of dollars towards employees, making sure they live above a certain wage? Like, what does it look like in that context?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of metrics. You can have a dashboard, some of which are measurable against standards or measurable against past performance, and then some that are more difficult to measure, and you really just have a feeling or a sense. So the ones that are measurable are, dollars channeled or man hours channeled towards work that's impactful. Number of graduates from a program like the Sustainable Life Project. It could be retention rates with employees. It could be, recruitment success with new talent. It could be in the form of revenue, if you can connect it to impact. But I think, beyond the sort of hard metrics, the spiritual stuff, the softer tissue of impact, I think is a feeling, in a sense, that is what gives a brand culture its energy, force, and it may be stickiness, and that could come in the form of engagement, that could come in the form of anecdotal evidence, just people reporting on some of the things that they like about the brand that have nothing to do with product and services, or even employees, celebrating something that they're very proud to be associated with, and then creating this culture, both internally and externally, that is a culture of care, and that anything that would antagonize that or cause friction with that culture of care would be somehow rejected or filtered out. And I think that last one is the most important. When you can create a culture of care that is living at the genetic level of a business, not just in some mission statement or brand promise, but is alive and well and manifests in many micro moments throughout the day. That's when to me, that's the highest KPI, hardest to measure, but most important.
For sure. The micro moments, right? Yeah. Those are the ones that I love how you called it the soft tissue. Brand new entrepreneur, person stepping into a startup. How do you help them get into a space where they actually care about the creating culture, right? Where they understand the value proposition associated with saying, you know what, I need to take this more than just being in my mission statement or, just in the deck that we just created, but like actually being a stand for caring about the people in my, in my business or my organization.
Yeah. So I think it, I've had instances where founders have made promises in their deck that then, as we navigate the business, and this might be in an investment deck. So let's say a brand is 4 or 5 years old already and has a team, has a product out there, has some level of engagement, on social and other channels, and has a body of work and a set of behaviors that can be audited. And I'm sitting with them and they're saying, well, here's our level of, we're dedicated to our people and here's what we want to do. We're dedicated to the community and here's what we want to do. And then too often those dedications are not living in the business today. So they become these either aspirational points, someday when I grow up, we want to behave like this, right. Or worse yet, would be that they're false promises, that they're just marketing jargon or social washing because they know that's how they should behave, and they know that consumers want them to behave in a certain manner. So it's very easy to say it. It's much harder to live it and do it. It's much like I compare it to religion or even politics, but where there are a set of values to live by. Whatever religion you might identify in this instance, and just because you go to temple or church or mosque for an hour each week doesn't make you a good practitioner. It's not what you do when you're in the place of worship. it's what you do in your daily life, in those micro moments of care and kindness. So for an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. You articulate your values and your promises and your intentions, but that's just window dressing if you're not living it. And it doesn't have to be this big initiative. We had the Sustainable Life Project. That was a big initiative. We had some other things that we did that were big initiatives, but we also had all these micro things happening that don't get press or interest, or they're not storylines. But in the aggregate, in the collection, they're incredibly powerful. So what I say to that new entrepreneur is, reach inside yourself and ask, are you sure? Are you committed? And do you believe in the words that you've just put on your brand deck or your wall or your mission statement? Because if you don't, then don't put it on, don't write it out. Pick something else. Be honest. And I think it's that honesty and dedication that matters.
Oof. Honesty and dedication, or as I like to call it, alignment and integrity.
There you go.
The two aspects of any high-performing individual or organization. The IRS recognizes a business as an individual, so we should all be moving in that. But here's the thing: is that if you're not in alignment, it's hard to honor your word.
Completely.
So the idea is, just taking it from the broader lens around, like, startup entrepreneur, because one of the things that, as you were saying this, that was coming up for me was, I personally believe in not just the idea, but the premise that everything needs to come from care, right? Like, I need to care at a soul level, at a human level, about the individuals that I work with, about the work that I do, about everything. Like, I have to really care to give it the greatest possibility of giving it my all. And one of the things I realized is that at a certain point in my life, I didn't know how to care about myself. I didn't know how to care about me. I didn't know what taking care of me was. I didn't know what honoring my desires was. I didn't know about any of those things. So I had to go through my own little personal transformation, and sort of a reinvention process. Like I call it, from going from my rock bottom sandwich and, broken and all that kind of stuff, to being in a space where I can, live happily, fulfilled, break personal records and all that kind of stuff, like that transition. Can you talk a little bit about your personal reinvention? Like what have you transformed through these past few years to become the person that you've become in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I stepped aside from day to day as the CEO and the chairman of Tender Greens, which was so part of my identity for 15 years that it was hard to unwind that. And I, for at least a year, if not longer, I had some speaking engagements and other things that I had committed to, and people wanted to hear about Tender Greens, and I, much like a lead singer who was going off and doing a signal career, I wanted to play my new material, and people wanted to hear the greatest hits. And it was a frustrating and weird transition for me, because there were moments where I kind of felt like a fraud, that I was sharing with the audience what they wanted to hear, but it's not what I wanted to talk about anymore. I wanted to move on, and I had some clunky years in doing that. I think COVID, in some sense, actually helped me stop, really pause, look inside myself without any worry about what the world thought. And I took some time to finally write a 10-year plan, which is the story of building tender greens and a lot of the lessons learned, which was very cathartic, and set that aside. And I was able to, put it out, proud of what I had done, but ready to move on also. And in that time, moving here to Princeton, living on a farm, and using nature as my teacher, and learning just crazy new skills, like how to split wood, or cut down a tree, or till a field, or harvest a deer in the dead of winter, and field dress it and butcher it. Just crazy stuff that you don't do in Santa Monica or Brooklyn.
Agreed. Agreed. No, all of those things are still foreign to me.
So it gave me headspace and time to really sit with myself and ask myself what's important, what are the priorities, and really just come back to center. And it became very clear very quickly that my identity has always been that of a chef. So I've had, I was founder, entrepreneur, CEO, whatever, thought leader, but at the end of the day, at my core, I'm a chef. And if I use that as my base camp, as my anchor, and then go back out into the world as a chef with some unique skills and perspectives and network and what have you, that I won't lose my way and I won't lose my identity. And then I can evolve again from that perspective. So as I've sort of blossomed out again, as we come out of the pandemic, my intuition 6-7 years ago, which was leading me into biodiversity in the food system and regenerative agriculture, has brought me to this place of regenerative living, grounded in food, but not limited to food. And now, what we're cultivating is a community of regeneration, with the hope to really demonstrate ways to regenerate oneself, one's community, and our influence on the environment, to whatever degree you can do it. But if through content and story and consulting and other channels we can we can amplify this movement, then I think we can have a meaningful impact forward. Because as you and I were talking earlier, the planet needs to heal or regenerate. We do as individuals, because the last 2.5 years has been brutal, I think, for all of us. As much as it might have been a gift, it's I think we all have a little PTSD.
Yeah.
And then our culture, particularly here in the U.S., needs some work. I mean, there's so much tension in this country right now that needs requires healing. And not to say that we're going to lead the way on that. I can't figure out politics, but we certainly want to look at things holistically. So it's not just environment or personal wellness or building bridges between polar opposites, but to see where we can find that overlap and pitch a broader tent so everybody can play a role and participate.
Love that. There's something really beautiful that I want to just highlight on there. And I want to just talk about 10-year plan as a framework as well. But the thing that you said is that at my core, I'm a chef. And one of the most powerful things that I have done personally and that I do with my clients is, like, there's all this stuff, right? There's all the things that you can do, and then when you look at the idea of, zone of genius, right? There's the things that you do well, and the things that everybody knows that you can do, but that really don't put you at your highest leverage, that really just create the most momentum. And one of the things that I realized about myself is that at the core of everything it is that I do is writing. I'm a writer. I'm just a writer trapped in the body of an NFL lineman. So, but I'm a writer, and so everything comes from writing. So the speeches come from writing, the social media comes from writing, the talks come from writing, and so everything comes from this place of writing. So I love that you called it base camp. You said, if I just make that base camp, and then for you being a chef, the idea is, come into that place where you understand your real superpower, Yeah. And there's some components of that, like superpower says, well, sure, I can be paid for it, and I can teach from it, and I can feed my soul. It's a form of art and creativity. There's an inspiration component associated with it. There's a mastery, like there's all these, there's all these beautiful like things woven into you being a chef. How do we find our superpower? How do we really get in touch with the thing, that thing that's operating at the center that may not necessarily be visible on the surface?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, there's passion, right? What do you love? Mm-hmm. Because what you love is probably what you're going to be good at. And, Seth Godin talks about doing something that you can be best in the world at. Mm. And that doesn't mean the world has to be the entire planet. It might be Venice, California. But whatever your world of influence is or can be, ask yourself, can I be the best with work and dedication and some luck? When I was in college, I was getting ready to go off to graduate school for psychology. So I was sort of teed up to go into a PhD program and academia and blah blah blah. But I didn't really believe I could be a world-class academic. I thought I could be an academic, but I didn't believe I could be world-class. And I was working at the Four Seasons Hotel in Philadelphia while I was going to college, and falling in love with food and wine and hospitality. And the more I got into it, the more I realized this is what I do to relax. This is what I do, to communicate with people. And I believe if I really put my mind to it, I can be world class in this area. So I went the unconventional route and went to culinary school at a time when nobody wasn't trendy. And there were a lot of hard years, but I was super dedicated, and it's worked out fairly well for me. And I think for people who are trying to figure their superpower out, it's, what is that thing that you really sort of at your core believe this is your identity. This is who you are. This is what you bring to the world. So I am not a talented performer. I can't tell a joke. I can barely dance with a name like Oberholtzer, whatever. So what I bring to the party is food, and I know that, and I hold that position, and I think for people who who are really trying to figure out what their superpower is, it's right there. You know what you're good at, or at least you know what you love, and then you have to just find a way to monetize it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can be obscure.
Mm-hmm.
Your passion is butterflies. It's a little esoteric, but there's a need to understand pollinators, and you can go off and some channel just fascinated with butterflies and become the world expert on butterfly migration. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be a stockbroker or doctor or lawyer or whatever. Just connect to that passion and then do it better than anybody else.
The passion point is really a beautiful point of clarity, because passion and obviously doing it better than everybody else. Because one thing about the passion is that, especially for creatives, many of whom may wear their heart on their sleeve in their initial pursuits, self included, like initial pursuit. I went through the things, I tried the things, I was, moving into my gift, and then you hit the wall, right? You hit the wall of rejection numerous times.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't have at that point in my development, I didn't have the understanding or the wherewithal to stop hitting the wall.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how to do that. And then through care and through mentorship and through guidance, many of whom we've met through, in our community in metal and beyond. And it was like, oh, well, these are ways that you move through those types of things,
Yeah.
And so what I realized that I needed to do is I needed to have a longer vision than just what it was that I wanted to be able to accomplish. And so I wanted to sort of round out our conversation about the idea of 10-year plan. I remember this, there was a woman who has I forgot her name. I think she has a site where you can actually go on her site and you can create a 10-year plan. I forgot her name, but I was like, oh, that's a really powerful thing. Like, to have that type of a vision of myself, not just myself, but like the possibility of what I can create and the impact I can create. Why is it valuable to have a 10-year plan, and what are the components that are necessary to make an integrative 10-year plan that not just, accomplishes like the career and the sort of the legacy building trajectory, but also that like satiates the soul, like from a family lifestyle? Like, what does that look like to you?
Yeah. Well, it's on your shirt. So alignment only happens when there's clarity, right? So if there's not a true north, then it's hard to align around something that's sort of ambiguous. If in terms of business or even life can be messy in the moment. And if you're just in the moment, then it's hard to align around a plan. So, to say it briefly, the way I start with people is, I ask them the 3 whys, which, there's a Simon Sinek why, which is, why does the world need your product or service or whatever it is you want to do? What's the point? Is it redundant? Is it new? Give me that. And you need to be able to answer that. And then why now? So sometimes the world needs is just the worst time ever. So you want to challenge the timing, because timing can be everything. And then the third and probably the most important and toughest for some to answer is, why you? Why are you the one who can bring this to market? And that's where experience, capital, whatever. But you need to convince me that you can do this. It might be a great idea, the timing's right, but you've never busted a table and you want to open a restaurant. Maybe you need to go work in a restaurant before you start one yourself. So you get through that. And that sort of sets the pin in the map of where to start. Here's where you're at. And you go through an exercise of strengths and weaknesses, and values and everything else that matters at the core, just so that there's self-awareness. And then the next part of the exercise is, in 10 years' time, what have you built? What difference have you made on the world? What's the scale? How many people have you affected? In what way? What is the press saying about you? So if there was a New York Times above the fold article on your business, what does it say? What awards have you been given? What have you done? Tell me the story. And the more you can be clear about what that story is that you're going to be building towards, the easier it is to align people around that vision of what you're building. So we're going to build, for us, it was 30 restaurants across California in the 3 key markets, grounded in local organic agriculture, led by chefs, with a promise to create a liquidity event at the end of a decade, if we were so lucky to succeed. And along the way, we will have made meaningful impacts on the communities that we work in. At the time, we didn't know exactly what those impacts were, but it was part of what informed the Sustainable Life Project and other things along the journey. And we will have changed the way people in Los Angeles eat. And it could be argued we achieved all of that. Not single-handedly, but we were pioneers at the time and had a lot of influence on the food space. And what that did was it aligned everybody around this true north and this understanding of what we were building, the time it would take to do it, and what it would look like at the end of the rainbow if we were successful, and how each member would participate in that value creation. So investors were patient, members of the team who were brought on were patient, farmers were clear on their role and their need to grow with us and the pace at which that would happen. And then the press followed along and told that story as we, had meaningful wins along the way. So I think looking back, it was really, really important. The name of our company was called TYP Restaurant Group, which stands for 10-year plan. It was so clearly articulated. And when you invested in the company or you signed on to join the team or you signed a contract, it was with TYP Restaurant Group, and 10-year plan was explained. So everybody knew. And I think that's where, the alignment around a clear vision was formed and really served us well. And then the integrity part is, do you keep your promise? Are you staying on plan or are you going off the rails? So the integrity side of it is doing what you said you were going to do. And then the third and most important part of TYP, once you have that starting point and that end point, is the navigation system and saying, okay, now we got to get started. So what are the top 3 priorities ahead of us? And then having the discipline, just move the ball down the field, knowing that every play matters, but the goal is the Super Bowl.
Wow. I'm breathing that in, dude, because that is very profound, and for a guy that loves to bring visions to life and to live in a big vision, like that is it's great to see that as a reference point and a compass, a way to be able to move through, like you said, if there is no true north, then there is no alignment. Right. You can't align around without knowing where you're going. So I love that. That is beautiful. So In reference to all the work that you're doing right now, like where can people find out more about you? Like where can people like go to explore what you're currently creating and the new branch or birth of regeneration, so to speak?
Yeah, well, you can follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn, Erik Oberholtzer. They can also go to Cohere um, and see what we're doing there at cohere.co. And then just, I write for Rolling Stone. I write for Food Tank and some others. So occasionally you'll see an article on the topic. And then of course, if you want a nice easy summer read, 10-year plan is, I think we wrote it with entrepreneurs in mind. So it's not a dense business book. It's a story of three guys who built a company and did what they said they were going to do, and really try and serve up some lessons both from success and failure. And I think, based on the feedback that we've gotten, I think entrepreneurs are finding it really, really helpful.
Awesome. I love it. Love it. Go to Cohere. Doing great work with founders and in the emerging spaces and beyond. But I love you as a human, man to man, brother to brother. I love you. I appreciate your presence in my life, and I appreciate you for absolutely, man. I really appreciate you for joining us on the podcast, the All In CEO. Thank you, my man.
Good seeing you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good seeing you too. I will catch y'all later.
Okay.
Peace.